So you said you had a... did you just say adios?
Adios, muchachos.
Adios, muchachos.
Yeah, dude. I'm pissed because it took me like twice as long to get home from work today because I don't know what's wrong with people. But people cannot drive in the rain, dude. It's like so bad.
I swear people drive worse in the rain in New England than they do in the snow. That's my like pretty solid theory. Like people do crazy crap in the rain. They either drive really slow or they like hydroplane everywhere in the pouring rain, or like I don't know. It's just
It was like legitimately like at least 3 car accidents that I saw on my way home.
Dude, that's a lot.
Do so many detours, dude.
That's a lot.
But then I started thinking, I'm like, is it that people can't drive in the rain, or are we just giving people too much credit? Is a majority of the world just bad at driving?
I don't know. I feel like it's very, very easy to get a license when you consider that you have like a potentially several thousand pound vehicle that you're driving on the road.
Yeah.
With like a pedal with your foot. Like even when you think about the idea of just like your foot and your hands controlling like a vehicle that big, it seems kind of crazy.
Yeah. I'm going to chalk it up that a majority of the people in this world just are not good at driving.
Just not meant to drive.
No, not meant to drive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a long time, especially for your drive home. Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the PUDs Podcast. All right, man. So what's up?
What is up? What's up?
I'd like to announce this officially starts season 2. Season 2. Exactly a year ago from the day that we're recording this, or the night, I guess, we released our first episode of PUDs.
That's so
happy
crazy.
1-year anniversary. That was our PUDs pilot that dropped. That still is retaining pretty much the most listens because I guess people start from the beginning when they listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
But I listen to it now and I'm like, we've come a long way. We've come a long way.
Pop the champagne. One year in, like, who would have thought? Who would have thought we would have made it this far?
Yeah. 1 year,
crushing it.
31 episodes. So that was pretty cool. I actually were thinking we were close to 2 a month, but we're a little bit over that technically by the statistics.
Yeah. I think we're definitely a little more than that, and we're ranked. We're officially ranked.
Oh yeah. I get a shout out to Stomp from the Slasher Podcast, who I was hanging out with on Sunday, do some guitar tracking for a project we're working on. But anyways, yeah, he sent me a link to, it was like some site did a bunch of different hiking podcasts that you need to listen to. And we got ranked, what was it, Josh? We're ranked
number 16.
Number 16 out of like 80. So that was pretty cool. I don't know, seem pretty arbitrary rankings. I was just going through it. I don't know how they did rankings or anything like that, but it was pretty cool. So Josh shared it out. I shared it out. Yeah, it was kind of just cool to see that we're on the interwebs. We're out there.
It was the top 80 podcasts, the top 80 best hiking podcasts, and we were number 16. It was on a feed spot. So they did their ranking, and we somehow made it to 16.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask questions, but I'm happy with that. But it was kind of cool. Obviously, Slasher Podcast was on there, and I believe it was the podcaster that does the Inside the Lines podcast. It's a podcast on the Catskills. Actually sent that his way, Stomp's way, and then Stomp kind of showed it to me. So it's pretty neat. It's kind of funny and surprising to see.
That was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome to just get like recognition for something that like we just started just because we like to mess around and like
just shoot the shit and talk
just literally just talk to one another and catch up and talk about the things that we enjoy doing and how we live our lives. So
the pointless up and downs.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of cool because I think we have retained, like, we've touched upon a lot of different things, especially just I was looking through the names of our episodes, and it's funny because there's definitely some I'm just like, oh yeah, we did that. Yeah. Like small white balls and katydids. Yeah. It was like one we had. But it keeps coming back to hiking, so it's cool. Like, I'm glad we were able to maintain the hiking vibe of a hiking podcast, but we also talk about a whole bunch of stuff.
So much. What was your favorite episode from the first season?
Oh gosh, that's tough. I don't know. I still think Little Sailor Josh is probably my favorite episode. Dude, if you haven't listened to that one, you got to go back and listen to that, people. Because that, in my opinion, is the funniest that Josh has been on this podcast, or at least one of the funniest moments you've had since we've been doing this. Yep. And I don't know. I just remember mixing that. Like, I was laughing like crazy. Like, I was just which usually by the time I listen to something like 2 or 3 times when I'm kind of mixing it before I put it out, it kind of loses its luster a little bit. But this one, I just kept dying every time. Yeah. When you say titty popping out of the life vest, I just lose it every time. It just gets it. The way you say it and the build up and stuff, it's just so funny. That's great.
Yeah, the best part about that was because we were still recording together live, like in the same room.
Oh yeah.
When I told that story, you were literally crying. Like you were. I literally was crying so hard. You were crying. It was crazy. Yep. It was so funny, dude. That's so good. That's so. Yeah, good.
It's kind of a dynamic. I think we've probably done like 10 or so episodes at home remotely now, apart.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's kind of become the more norm, but I'm sure we'll do more in person soon.
Yeah.
It's been a bit.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy the in-person, but it's definitely nice to just be able to come home and do my thing in my basement.
Come down with your cobwebs.
Yeah, you can't tell if I'm wearing pants or not, so that's nice.
You can't tell if I'm wearing pants either. I'm like, I was going to say, what does that have to do with us being remote? But I'm not going to go down that path. But I'm not going to insinuate that we were podcasting without pants on in the same room before.
You can insinuate.
Yeah. I guess I just did. Oops.
Oh man. But yeah, my favorite episode from season 1 was I really enjoyed steaming up the hams.
That's a pretty funny one. I'm glad that you had that experience.
Yeah,
even though it was
I love
creepy.
that story. That story in the sauna. That's so good, dude. I thought that was so funny.
I had an actual listener of our podcast I chatted with a couple weeks back doing the hike Mount Hale for Mike McLaughlin's 48th finish. But shout out to Jake, had mentioned he was listening to us. If you get to this episode, Jake, thanks for listening and continuing to listen. But he said that he loved the part in Josh's weight loss journey when you were talking about the saltines, about how the doctor was like, sometimes I get like hungry, so I'll have like a saltine or two. And you're like, lady, I'm just getting started with like a sleeve of saltines or something like that. That like whatever you said, it was pretty funny.
I'll eat a whole sleeve of saltines when I'm trying to figure out what my actual snack is.
That's what it was. That's what it was. But he found that super funny. Yeah. I gotta say that was a pretty good line.
Jake, that's real life too. That's real life, my guy.
It's just saltines.
I'm an habitual snacker.
I don't think I've seen you just eat a sleeve of saltines though. I also feel like that'd be really.
I can't
dry.
do it. I can't. Because then I'll get shamed. I do it in the privacy of my own home.
Like, what are you doing?
Oh man! Speaking of that, I'm down another 5 pounds, dude. I'm 10 pounds
congrats.
down. I'm crushing it. Crushing the weight loss challenge.
Still just doing. Have you been working out still, or are you just doing mainly dieting?
Yeah. Now that I'm back to work, I'm definitely just dieting right now. Trying to get back into the routine of being back at work and But no, I was working out pretty hard before I went in. So, but I also got a good feel of what I can eat and still feel good throughout the day and not be starving and overly snacking when I get home. So, no, it's been going good.
It's half the battle. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear. Yeah, it made me think if I haven't sent a sweaty workout picture to you in a little bit. I meant to today, but I forgot.
Those are good pictures. Those are good pictures.
They were, dude. You'd be surprised how many people thought that it was really funny and actually enjoyed it. Like a couple friends and my mother-in-law and stuff. It's like she's like, "Do you guys just text each other like that?" I'm like, "Kinda, yeah."
Yeah, why not? We're buddies.
And I was about to be like, it only happened once, but I think it happened like 4 or 5 times.
Oh, it's happened. It's happened a few times. Happened a few times.
It wasn't like a daily thing, but it definitely has happened.
We're comfortable.
I'll get you.
We're comfortable.
Yeah, we're just comfortable with each other. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. You want to talk a little March Madness before we get into the music moment, dude?
Yeah. I was gonna say do some March Madness. So every year I do a small bracket pool. And I think we got like 10 or 12 people this year or something. So we just do like little $10 a sheet kind of deal. But it's fun. I enjoy going through it. Gives you a little bit more reason to watch the games other than UConn from the Northeast crushing it out there.
UConn's looking good.
Yeah,
UConn's looking good. I just strayed away from picking them because it's hard to be a back-to-back champ. Like, it's really hard to go back-to-back.
For sure. It's especially in college especially.
Yeah. Did you get to watch like a majority of the games?
I watched a little bit, to be honest. I didn't get to watch a lot of them, but I watched a decent amount more so over the weekend.
This was the first year that I've actually been home like when the games start on the Thursday. And let me tell you, dude, it was the best experience. Like,
well, you had that whole setup. You sent me a picture of like that you had 4 games on at once.
Yeah. I had 4 games. YouTube TV, like any games that are playing, they'll give you like a side-by-side of all the games like on one screen. So I'm just reclined all the way back on the couch. Giant 70-inch TV, like, 10 feet away from my couch?
Yeah.
And then
living your best life.
Yeah, I got like 6 games going at the same time. I'm like, this is living, baby.
Can you actually pay attention to that many games at once?
Oh, yes. Oh, of course I can, dude.
There's never like too much. Like, it's not overly stimulating.
Nope.
And you're like, I can't handle.
Yeah, I think
How many games can you take?
I definitely have some type of deficit disorder. I don't know which one.
It's pretty much 4 games on at once, like that entire first weekend.
Oh, yeah. And that's all I did. Just kept it on that 4 game screen and took advantage of the Wendy's $2 Dave's doubles.
Excellent.
But how about Oakland, dude? How about Oakland upsetting Kentucky?
That was a big upset, and I had Kentucky going pretty far in my bracket too. So actually, quite a few people did too.
It's crazy.
I can tell you, I don't think anybody had Oakland. I went through all our sheets. Nobody had Oakland.
No,
or maybe Jeremiah did. Maybe.
Hey, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I really don't think anybody had Kentucky. Oakland, rather.
That's the best part about March Madness is those upsets and these guys that like
the St. Pete's Peacocks, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about those
from 3 years ago, the St. Pete's Peacocks. But it's like, and then these guys become overnight darlings like of the tournament. Like nobody heard the name Jack Golke before Oakland beat Kentucky. No. And then next thing you know, all of his stats are up the next day. He's taken like 360 something 3-pointers throughout his season, and he's only taken 8 2-pointers. Like he was just out there slinging it, and he becomes a hero overnight. And it's like that's what this is all about. That's what March Madness is all about. That's what makes it so much fun. Guys like that was literally doing like DoorDash like a year prior is now like all over ESPN.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty cool. I always say too, just watching the college people play out there, you can just see they have a lot more heart than I think a lot of the professionals out there. Yeah. It's really cool to see, especially when you got seniors like kind of trying to go all the way their last year in college after them playing 4 years for the same team and been in the big dance. So
there's definitely a different drive, but yeah, it's been a fun tournament to watch so far, and hopefully my boys, the Illinois, hopefully they pull it out because I want to be back-to-back champs, but it's hard. It's hard to be a back-to-back champ.
Are they like that? Is it the Illini or something like that?
Yeah, the Fighting Illini.
Illini, that's what it is. The Illini. It seems like a really redundant mascot.
It's just a big eye.
Yeah.
I think that's why Jeremiah picked Tennessee to win, because he's like, I know that letter. And then he's just like, winner.
He's like, that's a big ass T.
It's a big old T.
I mean, big old T.
Put it to the top. T for top. Put them up there. They're gonna win it. Oh man.
T for total victory.
Let's get into the music moment.
Alright, so this is the next music moment for Season 2, Episode 1. Been kind of just listening to a couple different new albums over the past few weeks. I know it's been a couple weeks since we've gotten out here and recorded and stuff too. I just was going to do one pick for this because it's actually an album with a bunch of songs on it. And I was doing a little research, and apparently it's won some Grammys and stuff, so that's pretty cool. But the album is called The Album, and it's by the band boygenius, and it came out in 2023. I didn't know this, so apparently I'm late to the party or game or whatever you want to call it, but it actually won a Grammy for Best Alt Record, a Grammy for Best Rock Performance, and a Grammy for Best Rock Song this year. And that was for Not Strong Enough off this album, so it's pretty stacked. Wow. Yeah,
all
it's
right. I'm writing it down.
Yeah. It's a super group, which a super group is generally what you call a group of people. Like I think of a super group to be like more from a 70s context of people, but they're all successful solo artists and they're all right. So Julian Baker, Phoebe Bridges, and Lucy Dacus. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but it's made up of those three members. They're all successful solo artists themselves. They're all pretty young too. I think around late 20s, early 30s or something like that. So that's super cool. And this album's just fantastic. I think I'd heard some of the singles off this, like Cool About It and True Blue and stuff, and just really caught my ear. And then I threw on the album and I was like I'll be honest, I was pretty blown away. It's been a while since I've probably liked and listened to an album this much. I've been listening to it a bunch over the past week or so since I first kind of was running through it on Apple Music. Some of my favorite songs off it, and I mean, this sounds kind of crazy because it's probably like 6 or 7 songs, but these are all super solid in my opinion. $20 is kind of the second song, and really the first. There's sort of like this intro kind of deal, and it kind of comes in with this and just really chunky sort of electric guitars on $20. Then Emily, I'm Sorry is like just a super good ballad, really good harmonizations, just this really interesting like tremolo sort of beat effect that comes out through it. Cool About It's kind of just a chill acoustic song. And just some nice riffs and really pretty vocals. I should say every song on this has really great vocals. They all harmonize super well together. True Blue is another sick song, Not Strong Enough. Excellent song. Again, it won that Grammy this year. And I gotta say, a lot of times too, like I don't really put much stock in the Grammys and stuff as far as what I'm listening to or what I kind of look to listen to, because I think they miss like a bunch of artists. Usually it seems like it takes a while for them to recognize people. Like I always think of like Radiohead finally got a Grammy after like 15 or 20 years of being a band probably, and they were just like, oh great, thanks. Like we've been super successful and popular and innovative for years, but thanks for recognizing us. So, like so good on them.
The minds of like those people probably changed too. Like, all right, we got to let some alt rock or some grunge into this. Like this is a very popular music for a large portion of the population. Yeah,
for sure. And Not Strong Enough, again, fantastic song. And then Satanist is another song I liked it. But honestly, the entire album is great. Highly recommend listening to the album by boygenius. So that they're pretty much riding out my whole pick for this week. I just think it was worth it and didn't want to have any other songs sort of overshine them. So check them out. It's the real deal. Like I said, I don't put a lot of stock in the Grammys and stuff, but I put stock into what I like to listen to, and it's really good. If you can listen to this album and not find like 2 or 3 songs after a listen through or 2 that you don't like, then I'd be pretty shocked. So something for everybody on there, I think.
Nice.
Yeah. So you want to get into the main topic?
Hold on, my music moment is
okay.
Everybody check out Nick.
All right.
Check out Nick. Nick is always putting up videos of him doing covers of songs, and he's working, like you said, he's working with, who are you working with, Mike or Stomp?
Stomp. Yeah, I'm working with Stomp.
From the Slasher
we got a
podcast.
little side project going on of a cover of Hard Sun by Eddie Vedder. So we'll see where that goes, but it's just been good to record some music and work on stuff together with other people and work on music together with other people again. So it's just starting out, but it's exciting and it's fun.
Yeah, so I didn't originally have a music moment.
Josh's jazzy music moment.
I'm going to promote my boy. I'm going to promote my boy a little bit. So check him out. He's at Nick Hikes and plays guitar. Is that your YouTube as well?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So
all one word.
Check this guy out. He does some good stuff, and he's a good singer. He might not look like it, but he's really good.
He's ugly as sin, but he has a halfway decent voice.
Oh man!
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I actually just put up a cover of Not Strong Enough that I was working on, so try to do justice with higher female vocals than my register can do. So I did some falsetto, and I can still hit some pretty high notes.
Gotta hit them notes, kid.
Gotta hit them notes. Yeah, it took me a bit, but
I knew you weren't gonna promote yourself on here, so I'll do it for you.
I mean, I have sort of promoted myself. More the hiking videos.
Yeah.
It is Nick hikes and plays guitar, so I'm pretty blunt. Yeah. I'm pretty blunt about my 2 favorite hobbies.
Yeah,
other than talking to you. Nick hikes and plays guitar
and talks to
Josh. There we go. There we go.
I like it.
All right, let me get things set up for the main topic over here.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so since apparently we are a hiking podcast,
number 16, best.
I'm going to keep it hiking related tonight, and I've kind of been saving these so that we could store them up for sort of a main topic, but went through all my winter 2023-2024 hikes, kind of did some stats on them, and kind of hit some interesting stats too. It's just things you don't think about. Wow, I climbed that much over the winter in elevation, but yeah, went through them. Just thought it'd be kind of cool to do. I kind of actually got the idea because a ton of people on Instagram were going through like, oh, here's my hiking stats for the winter. And I was like, cool. Nice. Let me try to do that too.
So let's start off with total number of peaks and total amount of elevation. Do you have that?
Yeah, I can go through that.
Yeah.
So the total amount of peaks I bagged, and when I'm saying peak, I literally just mean like the peak of a single mountain. 20 different peaks from New Hampshire and New York.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. Dude. Yeah, so pretty much the Whites and the Adirondacks. And then you wanted...
Total elevation.
Total elevation. So my total elevation gain was 42,530 feet of elevation gain. So
jeez.
That's a pretty good amount of elevation gain.
That's pretty good. And
again, that's over like a 3 month span-ish.
3 months, so...
Yeah, on and off. I mean, if you actually totaled up, because I didn't hike technically the last weekend of winter. I didn't hike. My last hike was on of calendar winter. That was almost the last weekend you could hike was 3/16.
Yeah, that's almost 2 peaks a week. 2 peak a week, Nick.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's been a fun winter. I mean, just kind of reflect back a little bit. This winter's been super weird. Again, it was warm and wet. We had a bunch of snow in November. In December, it kind of got washed away again. And then it kind of came back again late in the winter, as we kind of saw like a couple weeks ago. But for the most part, I feel like the theme of this year was ice and very varied temperatures. Hiked on some pretty cold days and hiked on some really warm, mild days. So,
do you feel like the conditions this year made it, like, was it easier? Was it harder than winters you've done in the past?
That's a good question. I think the ice this year in spots was worse than I've ever dealt with. I think more snowpack definitely makes things cleaner and easier. And also, I didn't have to deal with any particular river crossings, but if you had to deal with them this year, that was another thing just because the precipitation and the warm-ups and freezes that we had. So yeah, I'd say it's the ice that I saw this year is like some of it was the worst I've seen since I've been hiking. And I think 5 winters now, 6 winters, something like that. More ice than
snow this year?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think in general.
Yeah, that stinks.
Yeah, it was icy AF out there a lot of the season, frankly, and bare rock and mud in some of it. So to take it back, I mean, you've been pretty open on this podcast with hiking the list and stuff, but I kind of wanted to really continue knocking out winter 48 peaks. So doing the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers in the winter and calendar winter. Winter kicked off, I believe, on 12/21 this year, and then it ended on like 3/19. So it's literally up to the minute of that day and basically the winter solstice to the vernal equinox. So that's kind of your boundaries of when it starts and begins. Some lists I actually learned, so like the Adirondack 46, it's actually just the days of the solstice or like a finite day. They might be even on like the 21st of the month or something they do. They don't actually use the vernal equinox and winter solstice like the Whites do. Or I should say the Appalachian Mountain Club does for their list. So yeah, just a little tidbit of information I didn't know there. So without further ado, kick things off with a friend of the podcast, Mike Trokey, on December 22nd, did an ascent of Lincoln and Lafayette, otherwise known as the Franconia Ridge Loop that everybody sees pictures of on Facebook and Instagram, the Franconia Ridge Loop that I had done with you. And actually, I think we talked about back then that the last time I'd been on it was like 5 years or 6 years before with you. So it had been that long since I'd been on Franconia Ridge.
Yeah.
And that one, I mean, it's a spectacular hike, lots of above tree line hiking. I shared a ton of pictures to our Instagram of it. I took like 100 and something pictures easily after I'd narrowed down what I wanted to keep from that day. Yeah, it was just a really fantastic day. Had some difficulty at the first river crossing on the way up to Mount Lincoln, or actually Little Haystack and then Lincoln. So we did the loop counterclockwise, which is the way I like to do it. You go up by Falling Waters, go up and over that, and you get to Little Haystack. you go on to Lincoln, you go down between Nicole, you go up to Truman, then you hit Lafayette, then you come down pretty much towards the way of Greenleaf Hut, and you make your way back to the parking lot to do a sort of giant loop. And this one's 8.9 miles and 3,950 feet of elevation gain, for reference.
So, are none of those peaks called Franconia?
No, but the ridge itself is called Franconia Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the whole Franconia range, I think Garfield's in the Twin Range. I'm not positive on that one, or maybe it is part of Franconia Ridge, but it's definitely at least Liberty. From south to north, it goes Liberty, Flume, Lincoln, Lafayette, or the 4,000 footers that are on that one.
That's its own range. That's the Franconia range.
Yep, and it makes up, I mean, if you've just been up to New Hampshire, it makes up pretty much the eastern side of 93 when you're driving through Franconia Notch. That's all Franconia Ridge.
Oh, so that's what I'm looking at every time I drive up there.
Yeah, those giant walls that go up into the sky.
Yeah. When I send you pictures and say, what's this?
What mountain is this, Nick?
What is it?
It's just a picture of a hill in Tiverton. I'm like, that's not a mountain.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. It's all perspective. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I feel like I did talk about some of these before, but I don't think I went into a lot of detail.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It's a whole recap of your winter hikes.
Yeah. So that was a super cool day, and I know I talked a little bit about it too, but on the way down, had a little scary moment. Mike Trokey slipped on some boilerplate ice.
Yeah.
Coming down Lafayette on like the northwestern side of Lafayette, and like slid like a good probably like 10 feet or something down the trail, and kind of like hit a rock with his thigh. But he was okay in the end, but kind of a scary moment. We both, speaking of ice, he put crampons on. I actually put just my like trail crampons on, which aren't full crampons, but just to get a little bit more traction from the Catula micro spikes that I had on. Other than that, the day was beautiful. We had incredible visibility. This was after the snow wiped out everything. The rain wiped out all the snow earlier in December. So we kind of hit some snow maybe like right before tree line, but like most of the ridge was like bare rock and ice, which was kind of wild.
Yeah. Didn't slow Mike down either.
No, apparently not. No, it did not. He held the course, and glad he wasn't super hurt. So it was good to get out. We were super stoked to get those two peaks and kind of kick off winter the right way, so to speak. Kick it off with a bang. Next, I hit Bald Peak, North Kinsman and South Kinsman. So this is sort of like an out and back with a spur to Bald Peak, which is not a 4,000 footer, but the Kinsmans both are North and South Kinsman. Bald Peak has really nice views along the way. And I did this when we went up right after Christmas. It was actually on January 5th. And I went up with Ash and Rylan for like a long weekend in Littleton. And I did this on, I think like the Friday we were up there or something like that. And had really not awful weather, but it was just super, super cold. It was like I wouldn't say probably, it's easily the coldest day I actually hiked this year. It was freezing cold. Woke up that morning, and the Mountain Washington Observatory forecast had like the wind chill in the morning forecast at like -40 to -50 degrees below zero or something like that.
That's so crazy.
So definitely made me do a double take. And I kind of knew going in that the Kinsmans are pretty sheltered throughout a good chunk of it. The summit of South Kinsman's sort of open. You can kind of see around it, but it's not like you're like up on like an exposed crag like you're on Mount Adams in the Presidentials or something. And North Kinsman's mostly sheltered except for like one ledge lookout area. So I kind of felt comfortable with knowing the wind was coming out of the west-northwest, that I'd be sheltered through a lot of it. But even with being sheltered from the wind, it was still incredibly cold. I didn't really stop moving. This is the one that we chatted about where I finished and I realized about a third of each of my 1 liter water bottles were frozen and slushed up. And that was with like a normal neoprene sleeve I kind of use on them, and I've had good luck before. But I just think when it gets to be like that cold, like I think the forecasted wind chill for like on mountain forecast was like around -25 or something like that, -20. So it was still very cold. Temps in like the single digits for highs.
That was early January, right?
Yeah, that was January 5th.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny because we had a nice day for Lincoln Lafayette, and then it was like a week and a half about later, 2 weeks later, and like I was freezing my nuts off, so to speak. It was quite nipply, and kind of, it was like, I'm like, winter's back. Like, and there was just a lot of ice though. We still didn't have a ton of snow. And that one, ended up filming the whole thing, which I kind of gave myself a little bit of a pat on the back for that because it was very cold that day. And to kind of try to consciously like keep moving and like take shots with my camera and like talk, and like it came out pretty cool. I thought anyways, when I put it all together. And that hike was 10 miles and 3,900 feet of elevation gain. And that one, like I said, there's a couple different ways you can do the Kinsmans. I had never actually done them up the Mount Kinsman Trail side, which you'd probably cut on. I did it that way if you know where Bald Peak is. The other option is to do it from sort of Franconia Notch and go up by Lonesome Lake. And in my opinion, this Mount Kinsman Trail was actually a lot more gradual, and I'm glad I chose to do it that way. I mean, I did it for something different because I hadn't done the Kinsmans this way before. But yeah, kind of glad I didn't have to go up by like Fish and Jimmy and some of the other really icy, wet sections that really are on that side. So that kind of worked out pretty well. So this by this point, I had racked up 4 new 4,000 footers in the winter. So we're cruising pretty good, I think, for that point. That was like early January.
You're like 3 weeks in.
As Josh so wisely put it, I kept having to chase that high, and I woke up early the next day after I did the Kinsmans.
No, you gotta say it right. You gotta say it right. You gotta chase that high.
I gotta chase that high. I gotta chase that high. Honey, why are you up? It's 3 a.m. I gotta chase that high.
The mountains
I gotta chase that high.
The
mountains are calling. I must go.
I got a fever. And the only prescription is more mountains. Ho!
The mountains are whispering sweet nothings to me. But yeah, I couldn't help myself. It was a nice day the next day. And because I didn't really get many views, I was sort of itching to get out with my camera and take some pictures. So on January 6th, the next day, woke up earlier in the morning and did Cannon from the Kinsman Ridge Trail, which leaves pretty much from the tram parking lot. And that one, while short, is quite steep. It's only 4.4 miles round trip to the summit of Cannon from that route, which is, again, very short mileage to bag a 4,000 footer. But it does gain 2,450 feet total. And I believe about 2,000 of that, or maybe 1,800 feet of that, is in about 2 miles. Or actually, it's less, I'm saying. I think it's like 1.6 miles or something like that. I forget the exact stat. Until you get to the Cannon Cliffs, it's very steep, very washed out. If you do in the summer, it's super washed out. I haven't actually done it in the summer, but I can see how it looks underneath the snow in spots this year because it wasn't a lot of snowpack. Once it's packed down with snow and you can kind of dig in your spikes, I think it's a fantastic way up Cannon, but maybe not the rest of the time of the year if you're looking to go up there.
When you say washed out, what do you mean?
It's just like it's washed out from rain and just foot traffic and stuff. Like it's just very rock. Like the trail isn't very solid anymore. It's all like loose rock and dirt and like roots and yeah. There's a portion that looks like it must have been just washed out by a bad rainstorm or something. But like literally the trail is just a gully and you can see people are just going up the side and going around it because and when I say it's like deep, it's like probably a 7-8 foot trench to like the other portion of the trail. Like you can just see it's like the earth just like let go.
Who's like the trail maintainer over there?
I don't know. It seems like they'd have to do a ton of work to actually fix it. So I don't think it's going to change. Yeah. That one I had done before already. I think in February of 22. Yeah, I had done that in February 22. I think I had done Cannon already from that same route. So this was kind of a go up. The weather was just nicer that day, so I just wanted to go up and take pictures and kind of get up there quick. I think I made it to almost the summit in like an hour, which was a pretty good clip. And just took pictures and kind of hung out on my way down. And later on that day, met up with Ash and my lovely daughter Rylan, and we actually went to the Flume Gorge and we went to Artist Bluff together. So those are two sort of pretty good. The Flume Gorge is just like a straight up family hike in the summer. In the winter, you can still go in there. They don't charge and you can't actually go into the Flume Gorge, which I know we kind of discussed about that before, so I won't dive back into it, but nice family hike. The stats on that one are 2 miles and 450 feet, the loop that we actually did. Kind of went up to the waterfall at the end, which apparently is actually a good amount of elevation gain just to get there. Later in the day, we did Artist Bluff very quickly. Great lookout over Franconia Notch. It's right across the street from sort of where Cannon is. If you haven't been there before, check it out. And that's about 1.5 miles and 430 feet if you do it by the short route that we did from the road. There's sort of a loop trail that you can take that goes over Artist Bluff, or you can just leave for it from sort of the parking lot and cross over the road. we kind of opted to take the short route because we had Rylan with us and it was freezing cold that day. We didn't want a freezer.
Smart.
That would have been bad. Would have been bad.
That's good parenting.
Thanks. We thought so. Yeah. So that was all on January 6th. Next, had been talking to Mike McLaughlin of the Slasher podcast. And he had been talking about finishing his winter 48 and he needed Owl's Head. So we all linked up with a kind of a crew that he put together. He did a great job putting it together. And we linked up on January 14th to do Owl's Head. And Owl's Head is a long one at 16.2 miles by the winter route and just about 2,900 feet of elevation gain. And when I'm talking about the winter route for Owl's Head, typically, and actually a lot of people do this in the summer to start out, is they take the Black Pond Bushwhack, which you take Black Pond Trail and then you kind of bushwhack north to the last big river crossing. I forget which trail you actually intersect there, but the last big river crossing sort of on the normal standard route out to Owl's Head. So it saves you some mileage. It saves you some river crossings, which are definitely not desirable when it's cold in the winter. And yeah, it was a good day. Not too much eventful in way of weather. It was just kind of cold. We did hit some snow squalls on the way out, and we knew it was going to be windy, but Owl's Head is completely sheltered, so not a really big deal there.
Was that the one where you spiked yourself in the face?
Yeah, and I did spike myself in the face. Yeah, so we headed up to Black Pond Bushwhack, then we hit the trail again, and then eventually you branch off to the Brutus Bushwhack, which we did instead of the slide, which most people do in the winter. Brutus Bushwhack is steep as hell. It was powdery snow that wasn't really broken out, so that was fun. And then, yeah, when we get to the summit of Owl's Head, I tripped on a tree root and had my head down, and my micro spikes, which I used to just put on my pack with one carabiner, actually whipped around and hit me in the face. So they like busted open right above my eyebrow, my left eyebrow, which was fun. Yeah. I looked behind me at Mike Keene and was like, "Hey, I think I'm bleeding." And he's like, "Yep, you are." And I'm like, "Fantastic." Not ideal to be bleeding from micro spikes whacking you in the face.
Not a 16-mile hike. Like, that's not an ideal place at all.
Yeah, it looked like more blood than it was because I was kind of sweaty, but it wasn't too bad. And shout out again to Jake, who had a Band-Aid in his pocket. So I was able to sort of just patch myself up real quick and not bleed or continue to bleed everywhere. And it looked just bloodier than it was, I think, because I was just sweaty and messy and whatnot. So I was looking at first and like, oh, that's not no blood. Like, there's a little bit there. There's a little bit there. There's a little bit of red there.
It's a good trickle.
It's a trickle. That's a good trickle. So yeah, we knocked out Owl's Head. So that was a fun one. That was really good to kind of shout out again to that just group of people that have been fortunate enough to kind of join on hikes a couple times now. But it was good to just get out there with some other people for a day that long. That would have been a very long day by myself to do. Yeah, and it probably would have been more interesting finding like the Black Pond Bushwhack and things like that. So
I feel like a majority of these you've actually done probably with people, no?
Yeah, I think, did I do any winter? I'm kind of looking at these. I don't think I did any solo. Oh, they're the Kinsmans. I think the Kinsmans and Cannon were really the only ones I did solo. And nope, never mind, until the end of the year. Like, what am I saying? Until I did 2 other hikes. Yeah, I probably did about half. I did about half of them with at least one other person or a couple of people. So that was cool for a change. I had been pretty much hiking solo like almost all last year and last winter. So it's been cool to have some other folks.
Cool. That's pretty cool that you linked up with a nice hiking community.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of nice people out there. Lots of interesting folks as well. But lots of nice people, I'm learning. Nobody that I've hiked with is interesting folk. Everybody's been super nice.
They're not interesting?
No. You know it.
They're not weird. You could say it. They're not weird. They're okay.
Yeah. They're good folks. No. Hikers are all good people. All right, so next was on January 15th. This was just after staying overnight in Lincoln. And again, I mentioned snow squalls, so I was kind of on the fence whether I was going to come home on the 14th after Owl's Head. And Ash was just like, oh, just stay up there because it's going to be a long day. And I woke up pretty early and stuff. So I did stay up there, and I was glad because everybody that drove home on the 14th hit like really bad accidents in traffic. Like those squalls dumped like a couple inches of snow on the highway in like an hour. And it just caused havoc, apparently. So next morning, woke up at Indian Head Resort, and then I hiked Mount Pemigewasset, otherwise known as Indian Head. I've been up Indian Head a bunch of times. It's a 52 with a view. just wanted to hit something quick before leaving that morning. That one will set you back 3.6 miles and 1,250 feet. So that's a pretty easy one. That's another really good family hike, I'd say. If you got young kids or something, it's a good one to check out. It's got pretty much one main lookout ledge on it that looks towards Moose Lock. You can kind of poke around and get views of like Loon and Lincoln and 93 and stuff and sort of the Kinsmans.
Is it
you
in
can sort of, it's got to be in Lincoln. Yeah, it's like when you head up Route 3, you basically park at the Flume Gorge parking lot where the bike path starts that goes up Franconia Notch, and it's like right off to the left from the bike path. And then you cross onto the highway a few times and kind of get up there.
Next time we go to Lincoln, maybe we do that one.
I'd be down. I've lost count of how many times I've done Mount Pemigewasset. I actually did Mount Pemigewasset last weekend, even though we didn't talk about that. I broke it out, which was fun. But yeah, that's a good solid hike. I really enjoy it all the time. So that kind of was a perfect little jaunt before I actually left for the weekend. And coincidentally, I actually ran into an older gentleman that was working on his AMC 4000s over 70, which is super impressive. They do separate patches for that. You can get like a 4,000 foot patch when you're over 70, which is just badass.
What was this man's name?
I'm not going to shout him out because I don't know him that well, just in case. But he turned out, what I thought was ironic is he turned out to be the trail maintainer for the Mount Kinsman Trail that I'd done like a couple weeks earlier. So it's kind of small world. We got to chat and he's like, oh yeah, I maintained that trail. And I'm like, cool. It was a really nice trail.
That's pretty cool. That's kind of unique that you kind of met him. Like, what a coincidence that is.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And like, he doesn't maintain that trail or anything either. He was just like checking it out because he hadn't done it in a while, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, man. So rolling right through January, the next hike was probably, I'm trying to think of a good term, like the crown jewel of like this hiking year as far as scenery and stuff this season. But on January 27th, so this started out as me and Mike Trokey were looking to do Madison and Adams, and we're kind of between that based on how the weather looked, or maybe doing isolation or doing something else that we needed. And anybody who knows those hikes, I mean, most people would rather do Madison and Adams on a nice day. So we were kind of looking at the forecast. It didn't look awful, but it didn't look fantastic. I think it was just supposed to be sort of cloudy with maybe a chance of rain in the day, and then it was supposed to perhaps clear up kind of later. And we were still kind of leery even like looking the next few days, but we were confident enough at least it was going to be a good day to like be above tree line in January in the Northern Presidentials. For those of you who don't know, like Madison Adams, like it's probably two of the toughest, especially Mount Adams is probably one I've been really intimidated by, I would say, to go by myself. It's notoriously like the hardest or one of the hardest peaks in the Whites to get in the winter, at least as far as just like raw like elevation gain and ice and like being super exposed above tree line for a long period of time. So I was definitely looking to this one and really been cautious about it and thinking about it a lot. So yeah, we were confident with what the forecast looked like. And then in the meantime, Mike M from the Slasher crew had reached out with one of his buddies, and they were thinking of trying to do the Wildcats because Steve from the Cape needed the Wildcats. And kind of told them our plans. I'm like, hey, we're headed to do Madison Adams. And kind of once they looked at the forecast, like both of them were like, yeah, we think we'd rather do that. So we're going to join you guys. So it ended up being Mike Trokey, myself, Mike McLaughlin, and Steve from the Cape. And we made our way up Valleyway to Mount Madison. And kind of that morning, I started looking at the forecast and noticed that MWABS was calling for a high probability of a cloud inversion, aka like an undercast, above like 5,000 feet. So we were kind of talking about that. And it's interesting on the way up. And like, first off, it had been just shit weather for like, I think the week prior to this. So like everybody was itching to get out hiking, but it was very much a who's who of like White Mountains social media hikers in the parking lot at Appalachia, which is cool. Like it was good to meet a lot of these people that I've interacted with on social media or have liked my photos or whatever. We saw the Littlefoot crew out there. It was just like a cool experience, but I'm like, it seemed like everybody was at Appalachia that day. And a lot of it was because of the forecast, and man, did the forecast pan out. We got up to Valleyway, going up Valleyway, and we got up to Madison Hut rather. And I remember Mike M's like, he's like, I think I'm manifesting. Like it's happening. Just like everybody's like, it's happening. And like the undercast was happening. Like the cloud inversion was absolutely happening. We could tell because we were getting to Madison Hut, Madison Springs Hut. and you could see the blue starting to poke through the fog above us. And also the temperatures were like pretty mild. Like the wind chill that day, later that day got nasty, but it was pretty mild. So just like super nice. You could see the sun starting to poke through blue skies, and we start heading up towards Mount Madison. And like, I don't know if we got maybe like a quarter of a mile from the hut, we finally popped out, and we just popped out above a sea of clouds. It was like wild. You could just, and the only things you could see were like at that moment were like Mount Washington, like the Northern Presidentials, Franconia Ridge, and like maybe pieces of like Carter Dome. You could see a little bit, but you just look out and it's just nothing. It's just a sea of clouds with like blue skies above it, which was just incredible. I shared so many pictures from this day on my social pages and in the PUDs podcast page, but it was freaking incredible. It was probably one of the craziest sights I've ever seen above tree line, and definitely one of the most beautiful days I've seen above tree line. It was just so special. Crazy.
That's so special.
Yeah, and what was crazier than that is that later throughout this whole week, I kept thinking it was people posting pictures that day, but the weather pattern that set up, it put on like this continuous show of like cloud inversion like every day for like a week straight in the presidentials, or like 4 out of 7 days or something.
That's so wild. I wonder how many people got motivated just to hike just for that.
Oh, I'm sure. But like, again, the screwy thing was like, if you have to be like above, like at least that day, it was like above 5,000 feet. So almost everything below that is just in the clouds and in fog, which is most of the mountains in New Hampshire, like overwhelmingly are below that. Right. So I was seeing pictures of people posting like, oh man, I was in like rain, because it was like snowing when we were going up Valleyway a little bit, like flurrying on us, and then all of a sudden we busted out of it. And it was like the weirdest thing. And then it was like just quiet and not very windy or anything, and just sunny and blue skies with like clouds and fog below it.
That's so crazy, dude, to even think about that. Popping up above the, like being in an airplane, basically you pop up above the clouds, and it's nothing but blue skies and the sun.
Yeah, someone was mentioning that exact phrase of like, it feels like I'm in an airplane or something. But yeah, dude, it was wild. I got some great shots. I think the best shot I got that day, which was interestingly enough was actually on my phone camera. It actually wasn't on my actual camera, which like it was funny because I was posting on Facebook or whatever. People were like, oh man, what? Because I did take a bunch of shots with my mirrorless. But I got a shot of Mike McLaughlin coming up the backside of Adams, because we ended up going up Madison, went down back to the hut, and we actually chose Star Lake to go up the backside of Adams, which was a little interesting. Had some really nasty side hilling, but I got a shot of him coming up with like Mount Washington in the background and stuff, and it's just like epic. Like it looks, again, it's like, I feel like a lot of people that don't know, and I'm just like the typical Northeast hiker shouting out like, we still have mountains, we know they're not that as tall as like the West, but like this shot looks epic. It looks like he's like he could be in the Alps or something. Like it's pretty wild.
You gotta frame it, sign it, and give it to him as a gift.
That'd be funny. Like you're welcome.
You're welcome.
But I really enjoyed taking some pictures of those dudes that day, and I'm glad they were good photo subjects. But I just got some crazy shots that day. It was a lot of fun going.
We're insane.
Yeah, I was just editing photos for a week and a half.
Explaining it though, you talking about it just now, that was like, you painted a really good picture.
Yeah, it was incredible, dude. And we got up to Mount Adams from Star Lake, which, like I said, little interesting, little icy. Wouldn't recommend going up Star Lake in the winter unless you've been up it before. And also, Mike M had a GPX track that we actually followed because it was actually kind of just difficult to follow. And I've actually taken that trail up like 3 times, I think, in the summer before or in the spring. Yeah. So just shouting out, like, don't go up that if you've never been up Mount Adams before. I definitely don't recommend it, especially not in the winter. But anywho, we got up to Mount Adams, and the wind chill kind of had kicked up by that point, but we're all just like run on like just a super high of just being in the mountains and like amazing views and stuff, and made our way down post hole down to Gulf Side a little bit, and there were a bunch of other people making their way up, and made our way back down, and we were all just kind of just in awe of like that day. like we were like, I can't believe like today, like this weather's real. Like I don't know exactly what meteorology I can't even pronounce what weather conditions meteorologically. Yeah. what weather conditions actually produce that sort of that undercast cloud inversion, but it's pretty awesome when it does happen. Yeah. So next, friend of the podcast, Wilkie, who we're still Big trying Wilk. To get on here.
Yeah, Big Wilk. Get him.
He's probably just laughing at us every episode. He's like, "You're not gonna get me."
You'll never get this. You'll never get this.
So Wilkie had been kind of stocking up on some winter gear this year and had been looking to get out. And I had kind of a cold earlier this week, so I kind of wasn't feeling super up to like going hiking. I think I was looking to hook up with someone and hike on Friday. I forget exactly. I think it was probably Mike Trokey was looking to do something. I was like, I'm not feeling fantastic, so kind of put it off a little bit. And Wilkie was like, hey, I'd like to get up and sort of do something. I was sort of feeling better by that point in the weekend. And the weather didn't look fantastic, but it kind of worked out because at least it was cold enough where Wilkie sort of got a taste of winter and got to test out some of his gear. And we opted to do Mount Pierce, which is 6.4 miles and 2,400 feet. So it's a pretty easy, mellow hike. It's not too bad. And actually, I'm realizing I forgot to call out the stats of the Madison Adams hike. For comparison, Madison Adams is 10 miles and 5,000 feet of elevation gain. So it's literally over twice as much elevation wise as just getting up to Mount Pierce by itself for perspective to do Madison and Adams. So yeah, we headed up to Mount Pierce, did a nice little day trip up there on February 11th. There was actually sort of a nice snowpack at that point again. Trail up Crawford Path was very packed and super nice. We got up to the summit, and unfortunately it was all cloudy and foggy. I was thinking about maybe making it onto Eisenhower or maybe Jackson or something with Wilkie if the weather was nicer, but we kind of both were like looking at each other on the way up and be like, it's not worth it. It was like windy and foggy and you really couldn't see much. So we were like, whatever. Made the best of it. Shot a film of that, threw that up on YouTube. Was super happy with how that came out because usually I don't have other people to like film when I'm hiking.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be able to like chill back and like take shots of him and stuff and get like a little bit artsy with some things.
Get a little artsy. It was fun. Nothing wrong with a little art.
Got a shot of him with a Gray Jay. There were Gray Jays like chasing us through the woods, like trying to get some food and stuff.
I saw that one. I like that one.
So that was cool. He was able to butt slide down, which he hasn't really done that before. So we kind of both had fun doing that. He's almost slid into me with his spikes. Because at one point, I got him on video being like, spikes to the face.
Real nice, Wilkie.
So we had a great day. We checked out some waterfalls after in Crawford Notch and ended up hitting Woodstock on the way home instead of bagging another mountain. So super fun day. And that led into the trip of New York, which I'm not going to get into because we did like a whole Spuds episode basically on our Adirondack trip, which you can listen to that if you want to hear more about the skiing and everything else we did. But on February 17th, I made an attempt to get up Mount Colden with Ashley and my father-in-law, Tony, aka Dad of Branties. And Tony kind of gassed out short of the summit. Long story short, didn't want to push anybody too hard and kind of felt uncomfortable. So we made the decision to turn back. Very difficult conditions. Tony, even though gassing out, he was a badass. He hiked in the snow in snowshoes and really hadn't hiked in snowshoes that much. He's hiked in some spikes and some winter conditions before, but not full out winter like this. He did really well considering the icy, powdery snow, and it was just a really awful day as far as condition wise heading up to Mount Colden.
Tony,
we had a really
he's gonna have to come on and I want to hear his side of this. I want to hear his side of this hike.
Yeah. I think that'd be a really interesting idea. We've been mixing up trying to have him on, and just between sicknesses and stuff, the last week it hasn't happened, but we're going to get you on at some point, Tony.
We're going to get him.
Yeah. Yeah, we did make it to Avalanche Lake on that hike, so that was fun, but the all said and done, the Mount Colden attempt was 14 miles and 2,400 feet of gain. So it's a long hike out in the high peaks.
That is a long hike. Tony signed up for 14 miles a hike?
Yeah.
How many more miles? What did you have left?
Well, if we had done the loop, it probably would have been more like 12 and a half. Not that that's a lot shorter, but we left it like literally the furthest point possible. It was like literally like we couldn't have turned back much. If we had continued on, it would have been shorter. Long story short, like 2 miles, I think by like at least a mile or two. Yeah. Anyways, it happens and we're all safe. So that was the important part.
Right.
And that was February 17th. February 18th did Snow Mountain and Rooster Comb with family Hannah and Matt. That one was 6.6 miles and 2,350 feet. These are just two shorter mountains with really great views in the Adirondack High Peaks region. It's right off sort of 73 in Keene Valley, if you want to check those out, or right near Trails End. And if you happen to stop there, like I said, you can listen more into our episode if you want to. So that rounds out sort of the New York trip. Didn't bag any new high peaks in New York, which is like whatever. I'm still working on that, so I'm not in a super big rush with the Adirondacks. Tentative goal.
You'll get there. You'll get there eventually.
Yeah. I'm 18 out of 46. Who's counting?
You.
So I got back, and going right into that next weekend on February 24th, I was itching. Got to chase that high.
Got to chase that high, baby.
Got to chase that high.
I smoke rocks.
Yeah, and it's funny because I feel like at first in the beginning of the winter with winter 48 peak bagging, like you're like, oh, I got like plenty of time. Then you're like, shit, man, it's like almost through February. I got like a month left all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had to get moving a little bit, needless to say. And we had some free weekends open, so that was good. February 24th was kind of looking at what I want to do. I think we had plans later in the day, so I didn't want to like be gone all day, or at least I just didn't feel like being gone till super late and driving home and dealing with traffic potentially. So opted to do North Tri-Pyramid and Middle Tri-Pyramid from the Kank. Went up Pine Bend Brook, and then you link to like Scar Ridge Trail, I believe, and kind of do out and back up to North and Middle Tri-Pyramid. That one will run you about 9.6 miles and 3,550 feet of gain. So it's kind of funny. When I started out, I'm like, I don't remember this hike because I had done it this way in the summer when I'd done them before, and I hadn't been back since 2019, I think. So it'd been a while. It's like 5-6 years or whatever, and 5 years. I can't do math. Almost 5 years because it was in the summer technically. But anywho, I was thinking, I'm like, oh, this is a lot flatter than I remember. And then I hit the section that stuck out in my head from all those many years ago, where you pretty much ascend out of a ravine sort of riverbed off Pine Bend Brook, and it goes up like straight up, like really hard for like a half mile. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm at like 2,000 feet. Then you're at like 3,500 before you know it. So it just kind of really goes up aggressively.
Shoots up there.
Yeah. I had my snowshoes on. I had my televators, aka heel lifts, on pretty early, so that was kind of nice. Nothing super eventful on this one. They have views that are pretty restricted. The summits of both of them are almost wooded. North Tri-Pyramid's completely wooded. Middle Tri-Pyramid's got some peaks out, some lookouts. It is an interesting area to look out from, and I hadn't been back there since we originally did the 48, so it was kind of cool just to see what you remember versus like what the actuality of these hikes are, like what they're like. Yeah. I think I've hiked just so much more since then that it's kind of cool to compare and like contrast and stuff. So North Tri-Pyramid's got like this little viewpoint kind of out towards like the Presidentials and kind of looking north across from like the Kank. And then from Middle, you can see sort of Tecumseh and Waterville Valley from one side. That's pretty cool. And then you can look out and see like Whiteface and Passaconaway and Lake Chikura. And then Hedgehog and Potash from like another side. So that was kind of cool. And this was another funny day. Like me and Ash ranted about snowshoes, but like I saw like nobody in snowshoes until I was coming up, and like everybody was in bare boots, and like people were post holing and slip sliding everywhere. And it was just like, I don't know why people do that to themselves. Like, I don't know why.
Pissed. You were pissed about that one.
Yeah, it was just like powdery snow. Like, I don't know why people go in boots. And then one section that people had been butt sliding down to was like super nasty coming down to Pine Bend Brook. So that was fun and interesting, but made pretty quick work of that one. I think I was up and down in like 4.5 hours, which for me was pretty good. I was cruising that day. I was feeling good, Josh. I was feeling good.
Cruising. You were oiled up. You were all oiled up.
I don't know what that means, but I'll take it.
I'll tell you off air.
Had a lot of salmon the night before. A lot of salmon. Yeah. Yeah, so moving on into March. This was March 2nd, and this morning wasn't supposed to be super nice. I was actually debating going up the Friday, but Rylan ended up being sick, and I was at home. So Saturday, the forecast didn't look as bad as I thought it was going to be, so I opted to get up pretty early. Ash had plans later in the day, so I needed to be back by like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or something, so I was definitely going to make sure, granted how much I've been getting out hiking, that I was going to be back for her and some of her plans.
Had to chase that
high. I was not going to be late.
High.
Had to chase the high. Got to chase that high. Yeah, so opted to go up and do Whiteface and Passaconaway. And this one's 12 miles and 3,800 feet. This one had some of the nastiest ice that I encountered all year. And I knew that it was going to be pretty bad, like going into it, just because like the ledge, there's one particular, first of all, the Blueberry Ledge Trail is a terrifying 25 trail that goes up Whiteface, but it's the normal way people go up. It's not like unusual to do this. This sort of ascends the southern section heading up Whiteface, and you do sort of Whiteface and Passaconaway. It's more or less a clockwise loop with a sort of spur out and back to Passaconaway. But heading up Whiteface, you hit, I guess, the Blueberry Ledges, which the Blueberry Ledge Trail dons the name of. And there's one particular ledge that's like a pretty vertical ledge that you have to like grip in with your hands and feet and like pull yourself up. I was very close to putting on full crampons, but I had to like kick in with ice, and I sort of slipped going up with one of my arms. Was still fine and had a grip, but I ended up like scratching the hell out of the side of my Apple Watch, which was unfortunate. But was better than me falling to my death, so that was probably, or maybe not death, but like breaking an arm or something like that.
Apple Watch.
It's this ledge. Two people. I'll be honest. I mean, it depends on what you've done. Like I'm wasn't uncomfortable or anything on it, but I just knew like I need to be very careful here because this could go wrong very easily if I was being reckless.
Yeah.
But I felt safe on it and stuff. I did have an ice axe with me in my pack just in case. That's the only time I took it actually with me all year, just because I'm like, if I need to dig in somewhere or something, like I feel like I might be this trail. And again, this year's just been so weird with fluctuations in snow level and ice and stuff. An axe wouldn't have dug into the amount of ice that was on there. Anyways, it's not like I could punch in and like grab something. Really just had to sort of kick in and grab onto rock and get in. But other than that, this hike was really smooth, not too bad. But that was probably the worst ice or worst section of any trail that I had to get up, excluding Mount Colden and whatever bullshit that was when we were trying to go up with the powdery snow and the ice underneath it.
And what was the distance in elevation?
This was 12 miles and 3,800 feet. So this is another pretty good day.
That's significant.
Yeah, and Passaconaway was super post-cold going up, but luckily this day it was super cold the night before, the couple days and before, so the snowpack was kind of nice. That's sort of another reason why I kind of was looking at this day. I'm like, it shouldn't be too mushy until like the afternoon, and then it actually rained sort of by the time I was coming home, but I got some really nice views. I posted some pictures of that too, but it was like literally just for like 2 or 3 hours in the morning, then it was like done. It just completely ended. You wouldn't have known like it was a nice day that morning just because of how the rain moved in.
Yeah.
All right, so that was March 1st, and then on March 8th was looking to bag some more peaks and was talking back and forth with Mike Trokey, and we thought of, initially we were planning on doing a loop because Mike needed Mount Monroe, and we both needed Jefferson and Washington, so we were actually initially planning on doing a loop up Ammonoosuc Ravine over and up to Monroe, over to Washington, down Gulf Side, out to Jefferson, and then back from Jefferson down Jewel Trail back to the Cog Base Road. So you make like a giant, pretty much counterclockwise loop. We were originally planning on that. We got there that morning, and again, with the ice story and stuff, we kind of just made the decision that we didn't want to deal with any ice going up Ammonoosuc Ravine and having to turn back. Mike was comfortable with leaving Monroe for another day, and we had met his friend Fawn and her hiking friend Kate out there, who are both super nice. Shout out if you guys are listening to this, because it was fun meeting you guys in person. Fawn's pretty active on the socials with like pictures and everything, and she's been super helpful, I think, with some trail tips and questions I've had from time to time. She's a gridder, so she's working on her New Hampshire grid.
Hi, Fawn. Hello.
In any event, they were headed up to do Jefferson by itself, so we're like, we'll head up with them. And she also knew this way to get past the river crossing on the Jewel Connector, so we decided to sort of follow them up to Jefferson. We ended up splitting off a little bit once we got sort of towards Gulf Side, and me and Mike headed over to Jefferson, went out and back to that. And this was another like just incredible day. Like, it was super warm. There was a good amount of snow earlier in the day in some spots. It just so much melted as the day went on. We were just in our spikes and got up to Jefferson, and on the way back, like literally could have taken my shirt off. It was like that warm. Like, we're just getting baked between the sun, like reflecting off the snow, and the fact that it probably was only like 40 or 50 degrees. It was not bad, especially not like high up on the summits and stuff. So it was just like crazy warm.
That snow reflection is very underrated.
Yeah, we both got sunburned pretty bad.
That'll amplify that sun real good.
Yeah, for sure. So we went out and back to Jefferson after heading up from Jewel, and then we made our way Gulf Side back up to Washington. And like, again, like didn't see a ton of people. Washington was more like snow and ice on top. And but to like get out on those peaks in that weather was just like crazy. Like, we didn't have a ton of wind really. We actually were like looking forward to some wind on Washington by that point in the hike, because like we were both like hot. Like I was like pretty warm, which is kind of funny to say, but it was just like, yeah. And it's always crazy too. Like we were chatting a lot on the way up there about how dangerous that mountain can be, but when you're up there in the nicest weather, like you'd never know it. It's really crazy. One thing that stuck out to me, especially in the winter though, I will say, is just the monotony of how the landscape above tree line there looks. Like there's nothing really, like if you're in an area, like it's just all rocks and open. Like there's nothing other than trail signs and cairns to tell you where you're going. So we were both kind of saying like this would be really crazy in a snowstorm to be in that like final stretch in Mount Washington. Like you'd probably, unless you had a GPS device or a very good like I don't know how well you can know what the mountain looks like, but it seems like you'd have no way of telling where you were in like a whiteout. It'd be impossible.
That's scary.
So we were kind of ruminating about that a little bit while we were up there, but we were both just like appreciating it. Like at one point, me and Mike kind of looked at each other and were like, there's almost like an overwhelmingly large amount of things to look at right now between peaks in the distance and stuff. You could see the Adirondacks like 100%, which was pretty cool. I was like looking at my camera lens later that day. You could see the Adirondacks, all the Vermont high peaks going across, and then the other direction in Maine was just like a clear like valley, super crazy visibility. Wow. Could see like Monadnock in New Hampshire, like no problem further south. I'm sure you could see Wachusett if I'd put my camera in the right direction as well.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty awesome.
It was some of the best visibility I've seen in the Whites. That's why it's funny. I was talking about Madison Adams still won it for like most beautiful day this year just because of that undercast, but this was definitely the second as far as just visibility and being able to see tons of stuff.
That's so good.
And weather. Yeah. So we had a ball up there. We made our way down. We actually opted, we were thinking of going down that Cog Base Road, but there's one section that was kind of like, I don't know if we want to deal with this right now. We were both kind of getting tired. So we just made our way back down Jewel Trail. And I rolled my ankle for the third, it was either the second or the third time on that section of trail on Jewel Trail. I've rolled it on the way down.
On that same spot?
Generally, yeah. Within the same like quarter-mile section of trail, for sure.
No.
Yeah, I post-holed and kind of put my foot sideways. I went to go like stand up on it, and I was like, oh, there's a roll. So I was okay, like whatever.
Yeah. It might be like time to stop wearing the ankle braces.
We'll see.
I can't hike without them. I can't hike without the ankle braces. I
feel like they just won't get stronger that way.
No.
Constant fear.
They get stronger by rolling them? No, you tear all the ligaments, dude. You stretch them all out.
By building up that muscle to stabilize them.
No.
If you just hike with braces, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, need them. Because I'll just roll them. I'll just roll those ankles are rolled, dude. I can roll my ankle on carpet.
I saw you roll it in my driveway once.
Oh, that was bad, dude.
Yeah, well, that wasn't that curb. That wasn't on flat.
Yeah,
I can't tell you too much about that. Yeah. And I've actually rolled my ankle in that same section of my driveway before.
That's unsafe. You need to put up a sign.
Yeah, it actually wasn't as bad. This roll wasn't as bad as the time I rolled it in my driveway, luckily.
That's good.
But anyways, enough about ankle rolling. I rolled my ankle in that section, but we made it down pretty uneventfully. We actually couldn't find the area that we crossed through with Fawn to dodge the river crossing on the way up. We were like looking for footprints. The problem is the footprints in the snow had melted by this point. So we were going down and we actually ended up back at like sort of where the river is off the COG parking lot. And we were just like, whatever. Like we just kind of pseudo crossed over it, pseudo walked through it. I was surprised how waterproof my boots were actually. So that was kind of good.
Nice.
And we got it done. So that was super cool. And like, it's funny. Mike pointed out on the way down, he's like, oh, like, you actually finished all your presidential peaks. So that wrapped up, all the presidential range peaks for me in the winter season. So that was kind of cool. Not that I'm never going to hike them in the winter again, but
right.
Banged them all out officially with Jefferson and Washington. So that was pretty cool. So this one, I couldn't find the exact elevation gain based on looking at sort of the topography on the map and stuff. I came out to about 5,100 feet. It might be more like 5,200 or 5,300 feet, or it actually might be around more like 4,900, 5,000. I think it's at least 5,000, but it's about a 13-mile trek with about 5,100 feet of elevation gain. So this was a pretty big day as far as elevation. Yeah. But I wouldn't say any worse. Like, even though on paper it might be more elevation gain than Adams and Madison, I would still say that hiking Mount Adams is more challenging as far as elevation gain compared to that day. And honestly, like to reflect back a little bit, because we're done with really the steep hikes, but the section up Mount Colden that we did, to throw that back again, was like something like 1,900 feet or 1,800 feet in like 1.5 miles or whatever. So it's super steep. That was some of the steepest trail that I was on all winter, for sure. Not sketchiest, like it definitely wasn't great, but that was pretty wild. The Adirondacks pack a punch.
In a mile, would you say 1.8?
I think it's 1.5, wow. Like 1,800 feet. Yeah, it's steep as hell. Yeah. Shout out again to Tony for making it a good chunk of the way up there.
Tony, I'll give you a little credit. You can get a little credit.
So to round out March, kind of was thinking this weekend, I'm like, this was on March 16th, and I was looking at the weather, and like it didn't look that great. We had plans later in the day, and I didn't want to be gone all day, so I was like, I could get up to the Carters or something like that, but we had some fresh snow, and I wasn't sure like how much I was going to see above tree line, and I didn't want to be like scrambling to get back home. And when I say like we had an obligation kind of like 5:30ish, so like I kind of had to be back, like I had to be done at like 2:00 or 3:00, kind of the latest. And Mike McLaughlin, Mike M from Slasher, had reached out and kind of mentioned he was finishing his winter 48 on hail, and he was gonna try to get it done finally. And a bunch of us went up there: Jake, Steve from the Cape, Peter, and his buddy Tom, and then Mark. And we all went up and kind of did Mount Hale with him for his winter 48 finish. So that was kind of cool to be a part of it.
That is cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. This route up Hale I hadn't been up before. It's kind of the common winter route now, but you actually park at like the Seven Dwarfs Motel in Twin Mountain. You just basically, they have a system. It's really complicated. You just put like $10 on your windshield, and they just take it, and they don't have your car towed or ticketed or anything. They just let you park there.
They extort $10 out of you.
Yeah, they just let you park there. Yeah, it's funny when you think about it like that. It is kind of like that. But
$10 on your windshield, or I'm taking it away.
Yeah. It saves you some mileage, and you can head up the North Twin Trail from that way. This is how I did the Twins last year in the winter. So it's actually probably common way most people do the Twins if you're coming from that direction. But you start on North Twin Trail, and then you catch the Fire Wardens Trail, which technically isn't a maintained trail in the Whites anymore. It actually was closed in the 60s. But number one, someone definitely is maintaining it, and number two, it's just a pretty darn nice way to go up Mount Hale, as opposed to the other option is to pretty much do a walkout on Zealand Road and then walk up the actual trail to Mount Hale. So Mount Hale turns from like 4.4 miles into like 10 miles or something like that, or 5 miles to 10 miles if you do in the winter to the summer. Yeah. So it's significant. Wild. And like 3 miles of that or 2 miles of that each way is like a road walk. So it's not like the most fun thing to do.
Oh, no, that's not fun.
Yeah. So we checked that out, did Mount Hale up Fire Wardens. Fire Wardens Trail was super nice. Very gradual ascent, and I think it actually follows an old road that used to actually go up to the fire tower on Mount Hale that was like closed in like the 50s. And it's funny, Mount Hale used to have views at one point back in like the 50s and the 60s because they cleared it for a fire tower, but there are no longer views unless you maybe had like, I don't know, 7 or 8 feet of snow in the summer or something like insane. It's all wooded now. You can't see anything anymore from the top of it.
What was the elevation on this one?
So that's 2,600 feet a gain, and it's 9.4 miles. Okay. So it's pretty mellow. I mean, when you're thinking of like the last hike we did was 5,100 feet and 13. This is like 20. Right. It's like half the elevation in like pseudo the same mileage. Yeah, and that was just a super fun day. It was cool to see Mike finish. Definitely going to be dragging out Mike to do some other hikes in the winter for sure to complete my winter 48. And just that's a fun group of guys. Been really enjoying hiking with them. So it was cool. And that rounded out pretty much my calendar winter hike, and didn't get out again. And my finishing stats, we kind of went over the mileage. I don't know if I did mileage yet, but I'll call it out again. So 127.6 miles, 42,530 feet, 20 peaks bagged, 13 new winter 48 4,000 footers, brought me to 35 out of 48 of the winter 48. And that was 15 hikes total. So that'll be it until next winter.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's a great recap.
Thanks, man. Yeah, hopefully it was enjoyable. I was saving it up. I have some biggies left for my winter finish, though. I've got like the Bonds left. I've got the Carters, Wildcats, Isolation, Carrigan, and the Osceolas. I think pretty much rounds it out. So I got some pretty doozy hikes left. But we'll save it for next year.
Winter 2025 is going to be a big one.
Yeah, winter 24, 25. It's going to be a big one. Cool, man.
Nice, man. Any last thoughts on your winter hikes?
No, other than I did want to shout out again to some of the people I hiked with, Mike Trokey, Mike McLaughlin, Steve from the Cape. Nice meeting some of those guys like Jake and Peter and whatnot. It's been fun. It's been cool hiking with other people and getting to know some other folks out there on the trail and sharing some laughs and just enjoying nature together, and also kind of getting to hike with some people that are a little bit more experienced than I am too. So that's been cool.
The thing I've learned is the hiking community is it's like way bigger than you would think it is. And it's also
it's smaller too though.
Yeah, it's bigger but smaller, but it's also like the very genuinely kind people from what I've encountered.
Yeah, everybody that I've been meeting out, especially in the winter on the trails, has been super nice. I think you get out there in the winter, and not that like people that hike the other 3 seasons and don't hike winter aren't passionate about it, but when you get into like the temperatures and conditions and stuff, you have to like really like hiking in those mountains in the winter to get out there and be doing it.
Of course.
A lot of different conditions and stuff.
You ready to get into the descent?
Man. Yeah, let's descend. What's up in the descent tonight?
Not much, man. I've been watching. Well, we watched that like Nickelodeon documentary about like whatever it is behind the curtain or whatever.
Oh my god! So did we.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. I'm not gonna no spoilers because I know it's still very new and it's very like it's being talked about left and right. There's definitely one big thing where I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But then some of the things I'm like,
it's accurate.
Isn't that bad?
It's funny you said that because I had the same feeling sort of about it.
I'm like, this is kind of just like the American workplace. Like this is not that it's necessarily a good thing.
Not
but
to
like,
downplay it.
We're looking through it from a 2024 lens, like things that were happening in the 90s and early 2000s. Like, I don't know. It just seemed a little bit like. You're nitpicking a little bit. There's definitely some big things that took place and definitely some crazy things that happened, but some of it I'm just like, I don't know. I think you're digging a little too deep on that one.
Yeah, my opinion, and without giving too much away, was the guy that they spent a lot of time on. It seemed like they were really like pushing on like how crazy he was, and then you find the one guy that was like really like crazy.
Right.
Yeah, like crazy. And you're like, this is like a way different level than all the other stuff that you guys are talking about.
Why didn't you lead with this?
I'm glad you agreed. Yeah, I'm glad you agreed.
With this? Why did you?
They like buried it hard, and then they like went back to the other dude again. And I'm like, but what about like I think you guys like hit the tip of the iceberg, so to speak here, or not the tip of the iceberg. Bad analogy, but like. It just seemed like, why did you guys like bury the lead with this? And it got like this crazy. Now you're trying to be like, but he's still a bad guy.
Yeah,
and it's like, but this guy's like, I don't think he's on quite the same level as the other dude, but
he made you eat 2 pints of ice cream. What a terrible man.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. It's funny you had watched that because we actually watched that too over the weekend.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, listen, it's interesting, but I don't think it's a shock that's what's happening on these sets of these children's shows, like, or these networks. Like, I don't think it. Some of it is obviously shocking, but some of the workplace culture, it's like, that's what it is like to work in America.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not trying to sound insensitive either, but it's like, is it that surprising that there were some really creepy people on set with shows with young kids and stuff like that? Yeah. Like, also some of the parents were way crazier than the kids were.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm just saying.
And
the kid
shame on some of them parents, dude. Shame on some, especially
me and Ash were saying that. I'm like, what person would let their kid do this?
Right.
I would have walked out. I would have been like, we're done.
There's one lady that could have like stopped everything, and she just didn't do it.
Yeah.
But enough about that, dude.
Yeah, check it out. What is it called? It's like the dark side of something.
It's like Nickelodeon. It's on HBO. Nickelodeon Behind the Curtain or something like that. I don't know. Dark Side of the Stage or something. I don't know. Yeah.
I think we actually watched it on maybe Netflix or something. It might just be on all those things.
Oh, yeah, we saw it on HBO.
Whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting watch, especially if you grew up like watching Nickelodeon in the 90s like we did, like all that and some of those shows. Yeah. Though a lot of those shows that they were mentioning when the problematic stuff was happening on, I wasn't watching Nickelodeon like anymore at that point.
Yeah, no.
I know Ash knew some of those shows because Hannah's like 6 years younger than us, so she kind of knew more of those shows from her watching them.
Yeah. I think like Drake and Josh was like, even that, I'm like, not really even watching that.
No. Some of those shows I just didn't recall.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize like Ariana Grande and stuff was on Nickelodeon. Like I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's like way past that time, dude.
Yeah.
Way past that time. But Nick, I do have one. I got a hypothetical. You had a great idea.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to this.
Do a hypothetical to end the podcast each week, and I liked it. So I got one for today. So here we go. So okay. Nick,
I'm ready.
Your best friend is taking a nap on the floor of your living room. Suddenly, you are faced with a bizarre existential problem. He or she is going to die unless you kick this slumbering friend as hard as you can in the ribcage. If you don't do this, he or she will never wake up. However, you can never explain your actions. If you later inform your friend you did this to save his or her life, your friend will die from that. So, you have to kick a sleeping friend in the ribs. You cannot explain why. So, since you cannot tell your friend the truth, what excuse will you fabricate to explain this seemingly inexplicable attack?
But it just said I can't explain why.
You can't explain the truth. You have to make up
gotcha. I was thinking
what excuse will you fabricate for kicking them?
I was hearing that as like I couldn't make any excuse whatsoever. You just had to be like,
You have to tell the truth. I mean, you can't tell the truth. You have to make up a good lie.
Why? So I'm just thinking of kicking you in the ribs as hard as I can.
Blasting me in the ribs.
Yeah, just blasting you in the ribs.
To save my life.
I don't know, man.
We just do it and be like, you were snoring.
I might be like, I'd probably just be like, yeah, you were snoring super loud. That would work. I'm like, you're snoring so. I'd be like, you're so fucking. I'm like, I fucking can't take it anymore. You're snoring so fucking loud. I can't do this anymore. Or maybe I'd say you had like a score. Like, if I could pick where it is, like, what if we were somewhere in like tropical or something? There was like a scorpion on your
you got to pretend it's realistic.
Side or something.
Like we're in New Hampshire. Dude.
I'll be like, oh, there's a giant. I just kick you, and I'm like, this spider. Huge spider.
Giant spider.
Enormous spider. He was fuzzy. He was looking at me.
Yeah. I was thinking right along the same lines. Like I'd be like, oh, there was a rat crawling on you, and I had to get him, but I missed. I just got you right in the ribs as hard as I could. Full on soccer penalty kick.
Or if you like just put a soccer ball like right near you and pretended to miss, and just kick you like right in the side. I don't know, but I don't know why you'd be laying on the ground.
What if you just kicked me? It would just started going go. Oh man,
yeah. That was an interesting one.
I think that's the best way to do it though, is to play it off like there was something on you, and I just blasted you in the ribs because I was trying to kill it.
Just reminds me of like straight up something out of Home Alone. That's what that makes me think of. Just like,
yeah, for sure. But all right, man.
Cool.
That was a great episode. First episode of the new season, right?
Yeah, episode 1 from season 2. Yeah. So this officially will be season 2. See if I get any intro music and new music out for this thing. Not new intro. We already have sort of an intro music, but I was gonna try to record that. So we'll see what happens this weekend. It's gonna happen at some point. I just gotta sit down and do it. But we're gonna try to spice things up a little bit. Maybe switch some stuff up.
A little spice.
Different segment music. But I think I like this this flow with the hypotheticals and stuff. And
yeah, I want some synthy pop.
Synthy pop. Yeah, I'll give.
I'll give you a synthy.
So just acoustic guitar still. It's like, well, take this for synthy pop. I'll give you synthy pop.
Oh man,
get your synthy pop right here.
Happy 1 year, man. Happy 1 year.
Yeah, happy 1 year to many more episodes.
Anniversary.
Thank you. I know we say it a decent amount, at least I think we do, but thank you if you're out there listening to us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. And don't forget, share us with your friends. Help them to come have some laughs and learn some things about hiking and have some fun with us. You can find us on social media at PUDs Podcast and email us at pudspodcast@outlook.com. Yeah, besides that, man, anything else?
No, man, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, let's hit it. Bippity boppity, give me the zoppity.
Bye. PUDs Podcast was produced and recorded in Black Cat Studios by the Pud Boys. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving us a review and subscribing. Find us on social media, and we'll see you next time.